Hi there, Sandra here from Create in Spain, and today I'm just going to be doing some very simple watercolour painting that will go onto the front of a card. I'm doing Christmas themed ones. Now what I've done is I've actually made some stencils, and so there are 4 in the set, like this. I'll give you the file down below and you can cut your own stencils out. Now I've done mine in plastic because I can cut it quite easily. It cuts really easily, it's not a problem. I think I did it on a force of about 80 and 2 repetitions when I was cutting it out on the Siser Juliet. So I've got a different design here because I've done 3 different ones so far. This is the last one. But what I'm going to show you is that you don't actually have to have watercolour paints to do this. You want to experiment because some pens will be better than others. And I'm not talking about the more expensive watercolour pens either. But what you do want to get is some watercolour paper, because this will not work on anything other than watercolour paper. This is designed to show you how you can work on small cards, small areas, not large watercolour. I've got in my stash so many different pens, it is ridiculous. I'm a bit of a pen hoarder. But these are Carioca children's washable markers. So basically they are watercolour. And if you didn't think you could use them for watercolour painting and get a watercolour effect, you're wrong, because you can. I'm going to take these 2 colours and I'm going to use the larger size to do my colouring. So I'm going to make sure I stay within the lines as much as possible, because I really don't want to go outside the lines. Bear in mind that watercolour will gravitate to anything which is damp. So if you have any excess dampness on your paper, that's where it's going to go. So I'll put a stripe of a different colour and we will see what happens. Now this is a water brush just with plain water in it. You can use a normal art brush if you want. I quite like these because they're easy to keep clean. And all you want to do is to go over it with your water, and you'll see that this behaves just as if it were a watercolour paint. So you don't have to go buying something new to do this. Now you can put some colour across it. Put this colour across it as well, see what result we get. This is just supposed to be Christmas parcels, so it could be anything, couldn't it? It doesn't have to be one colour or another colour. And if I want to add some more colour to just one area, I can always use the thin point, like so. Take water and blend it in. Make sure you don't go over your lines. Now I've got some other watercolour pens. I say the watercolour, these are from a set that I got from Aldi. $14.99 for a complete set. Now they're marked as markers. It doesn't actually say what sort of markers they are, but they're definitely not proper alcohol markers, that much I do know. But they do blend a little. Looks like I've got a smudge on there, haven't I? Let's get rid of that. There we go. They're definitely not alcohol markers. because you can't use them on plastics or anything, it just beads up. So they're definitely not alcohol markers in that respect. But on the packet it said something about methyl something or other, which makes me think they might have some alcohol in them, they just don't have a lot. And so I'm going to try these out. They've got two different types of nib. I will show you the other one in a second. Just up there. So the other nib is a normal sort of felt tip type marker. I keep opening the wrong side. Yeah, that one's a bit darker. And you can blend quite well. The ones that may not blend as well may be the reds, because reds are quite often such strong colours, such a strong dye in them, that they tint the paper before you've done anything much at all. Blend this out a bit. Okay, done. Just need to let that dry before I do the rest of it. So these are more expensive, don't have as many colours. These are as cheap as could be because they are literally just children's felt tips, and they do a great job for the most part. These are like, well, pretty cheap because of the number of them I've got there. They're certainly not expensive, but they're probably a bit dearer than the children's traditional felt tips. But they've got quite a good range of colours, and that works out quite nicely. So I'll leave this to dry before finishing off. Best to do that because otherwise you'll end up smudging things. Now the one thing that I'm going to do in my particular case, this card does not match the white of my base card. Now I could put it on a coloured card, yes, but I'm not. I'm putting it on a white card. And so what I need to do is to put a border colour on there. Now I could go for something like a gold, or I could just go for another green. I've got alcohol markers with a chisel tip, and that makes it very easy to put a border colour on. With the chisel tip, you can just come down, do it a couple of times if you want to. The reason I do this is because if you put a creamy coloured paper onto a white paper and you don't put a border on, it looks peculiar. It does not look good. Whereas if you put a colour in between it, it does. But I'm trying to make simple cards without doing one heck of a lot of layering. So that will do just fine. So I've dried this off a little bit with a hairdryer because I'm impatient. And I've put a little strip of this gold pen in between the bottom of the box and the top of the box. And now I'm going to put a line going down there as if it were ribbon, like so. I've actually got a gold ink which would be definitely preferable to this particular pen, but not everyone has got access to things like that, so if we're doing it on the cheap, this is going to be the way it's going to be done. And then a little loop on the top of each one is to use some little stars. I'm just going to put some of those on the desk. There we go. Most people who do card making have got little bits and pieces like this. It could be gems, it could be stars, it could be all sorts of things. Now I've got some fine tip bottles, and I've got acrylic varnish in fact in mine, but it doubles up for me as a glue because it does a great job of sticking on these little stars. Put the lid back on my glue or my varnish, and these can go back into the container. I've probably had these for about 5 years. You can tell I don't use vast numbers of them normally. And I'm always very careful to put the cap back on because I know what happens. I'll knock it all over the desk and they'll be everywhere. I would not like that. That would not be my idea of fun. Other thing I think I want to do is to put some little dots on here. I do like dots as well. Not quite sure why, but I do. And I think I need to make sure they are gold ones. Be very careful when you're doing this that you don't accidentally put your fingers over the top of it while it's wet. That's the sort of thing that I would do. So I'm going to be very good and I'm going to leave this alone for a few minutes until it's dried off. So here we have the watercolour look without actually using watercolour paints. It can be done. The difference is having the watercolour paper. If you've got the watercolour paper, you can do it. Without the watercolour paper, you can't. So if you're struggling to fund your crafting habit, spend the money on the paper rather than on extra inks or watercolours or whatever. You can even use this with food colouring. I've got big bottles of spray type food colouring for airbrushing. And that works perfectly with this kind of thing. It just does. But the chances are that you already have some children's markers around, or you know a child with some markers you can borrow and make a few cards. So that was one design. Then I've also got this one, which I think is quite sweet. This is the one where the colour didn't blend quite as easily because it is a red. The others blended quite happily. The red one was a bit more problematic. Then we have this one, which I think looks absolutely lovely. And finally, I have a different colour scheme entirely. And with this one, I've used a gold pen and put some branches into the trees and just got one little star on the top of each. So yeah, I think it works out really, really well. And for cards that take minimal prep time, I think they're pretty good. Hope you enjoy it and I hope you give it a try. You don't have to be an artist to do this. Make use of what you've got and you'll be surprised at what you can come up with. But definitely use a coloured pen to do the outside of the card if your card doesn't precisely match the base card that you're going for. This is supposed to be watercolour type paper. It isn't, it's terrible, but it's fine for card bases and it was relatively cheap. Link to the stencils down below. Hope you enjoy it. Take care now.